Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Quick Slants with Bethel University head football coach Steve Johnson. Quick Slants is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Bethel coach questions about the Royals, football or sports in general, or to just seek the coach's wisdom about life issues that are going on out there. This week we have an exciting program for you as the coach talks about that exciting game from last week against Gustavus Adolphus, what he has planned for St. John's this week, and he gives us a little after World Series commentary on the New York Mets and their loss. So let's get right to Quick Slants. So let's welcome back Coach Johnson this week. So Coach, first of all, let's begin with our usual team updates and injuries you have for us.
We had a couple guys last week. We really had a rough week where, we had Jesse Mockley, who's just been having a great year for us. He, on Thursday, had an injury just in a drill to his leg, and so he missed the game. And Dan Lytle, who had a thigh contusion against St. Thomas a week before. He was kind of progressing along, and then at the end of the week, his leg just swelled up to where he couldn't run, and so we missed both of those guys in the Gustavus game, which is brutal because they're both secondary guys who are terrific players, and so we had to play without those guys. I think they'll be back. Rich Tussler has a hip problem, and so I don't know. I don't think he'll be back. But there's just a lot of different things going on. But the good news is that it was the first time this year that our offensive line, the two weeks in a row, the same starters, and so that was a good thing for us. So whereas we've still got some pretty key guys down, but we're getting a little bit better, and so we're just getting some valuable experience, and guys are fighting together, and so that whole thing, that kind of injury deal is what it is. Every team's got those things, and you got to fight through them and make a way.
I know in previous weeks you've talked to us about how you were kind of looking for your team to pull all of the different pieces together into one kind of performance. I would assume after the way that you played against Augustus this last Saturday, you had to feel you were pretty close to that.
Yeah, we did. We felt, I felt like we really played. The word play is kind of a big deal. I feel like we've been kind of scrounging and working. We've been working the game a little bit, and I feel like we kind of, maybe let go of some things and maybe worry even. And I think it's a life thing. It's another life lesson to where, prepare for this thing, and it's a big deal, but if it's too big of a deal, there's never any joy in the game. It's, it's still a game. And I felt like that kind of did my heart good on the week. And, you can't, playing a complete game, just because maybe the stats or whatever it feels like is, you're never going to play the complete game, and you're always after the complete game. But, when somebody shuts a piece down, that's not, I would like to be a little bit more efficient throwing the ball, but sometimes that has to do with protection. Sometimes it has to do with quarterback. Sometimes it has to do with receiver. So you can't really put a quotient or you can't put a value on each thing. But I did feel like we did enough. We did some things that were, we executed well in the running game and in the passing game and on defense, and we had some traumatic things happen that we were rebounded from quickly, and that was a big deal.
Speaking of that running game, 413 yards rushing this last Saturday. What do you think were some keys to wind up getting that kind of power run going?
I think that opportunity. I think sometimes people feel like they don't realize that when just a week before we ran 48 plays against St. Thomas, and they ran 90, and when you get first downs, you keep the ball. When you keep the ball, you run more plays. When you run more plays, you get more yards. We made some plays on third down, both sides of the ball. And Gustavus is phenomenal, especially with their passing game and their trio of guys that are it's more than a trio, but they've just got a really explosive team, and their quarterback does some great things. So our defense, I felt great about holding them to, 40% is good for an offense. We held them to 50, which sounds like we didn't do well, but compared to what they average, it was good. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to put that's all on a sliding scale. So, but for us, we executed a little bit better on third and short and third and medium, which gave us an opportunity to do some things. And then Marshall played great in the offensive line. He'd credit the offensive line, and they would credit him, and they're both right. We really believe that, we just see it, that the O-line kind of gets some stuff, and he gets a little more, and then, they kind of motivate each other, and that's how we want to kind of work. That's even our off-season workouts. We give the guys this workout, and they exceed it, and so we give them more, and they exceed that, and next thing you know, we're kind of, outworking each other, and it's a pretty fun deal.
Marshall has 38 carries for 230 yards for you. Took a lot of really big hits early on in the game, but seemed to just bounce back and got stronger as the game went along. You had to be a little in awe of his performance, I would think.
Yeah, I was really excited for Marshall. He played with toughness. He's a very, very tough kid. He practices just like he plays. He never takes it down off in practice. He even warms up with high intensity, and really proud of the kind of man that he is in that way. He's a tough kid. He's got skills running with the football. He's had some stuff this year that he's had to fight through, and it's been hard. And we know around here that those things are, if you do fight through them, you're going to grow. And his patience paid off for that, and pays off for that. And so, he makes some plays and makes some cuts and breaks some tackles, and that might rejuvenate an old lineman who's kind of struggling with some stuff, and so he's baby, so it gets kind of going that way. But Marshall, I'm in awe of that kind of thing in one way, and another way it's what we're used to. He's disciplined. He hits the hole. He goes to the right place, and then he makes things happen.
An interesting aspect of the game that I saw was that you decided to go for that deep pass with Trey, just missing Charles Johnson. But they were kind of stacking the box against you, and it seemed like they thought for a moment, these guys can burn us deep if we allow us open. And your running game then seemed to benefit out of that. Did you see a play like that as a key yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a design in there. We didn't mean to miss Charles on that one, but we opened the game with a deep ball off of play action, and because we run the ball well, including our quarterback, Trey Anderson, it's kind of part of our offense that we've had for a while, when we had Logan Flannery, Josh Ockrey, Ben Wetzel, Phil Porta, and Mark Court. We've got all these backs and quarterbacks that can run, and Eric Peterson could, but we didn't have him run that much because he's throwing all the time. But they're going to stack the box, especially with a younger quarterback, and so we have some things planned to go deep, and if we hit those things, it's a quick score, and it's a killer. But you're right, it does loosen them up a little bit and make them be honest on stacking the box. And then sometimes we don't mind running right into a stacked box sometimes, because that's kind of fun too. Might be stupid, but it's still fun.
Drew Neville had a big Saturday for you too, probably maybe the biggest game of the season so far. Had the big catch early on in the play action you were talking about, and then had 2 big third down conversions for you. Coming into his own for you more, looking to implement him more into the offense?
Well, we always want to implement him into the offense. He's a terrific player. He's another one that is he's a tireless worker. He's a tough kid. He's kind of a crazy competitor, and there's a couple things I want to tone down on him, but there's other things that I think are amazing, and he is a horse. He's a phenomenal blocker. He's not really coming into his own. We gotta get the ball to him, but our league knows how good he is, and so it's a little easier to kind of double cover and to bang on a tight end, so to get him out into routes is a little tougher, and we just need to do that, and he's a threat because he's a big guy. He's 230 pounds and 6'2" or 3" or whatever he is, but he can really run, and so he kind of can get some mismatches. But he's a terrific blocker, and he's smart, and so he just can really do a lot of things for us. So he's not coming into his own. He's into his own. He's one of the better players maybe in the country, and so we want to keep using him that way.
This week you take on St. John's. Last season you had a really hard-fought battle with them in Collegeville. This season, what do you look at some keys for yourself and for your team?
St. John's it's really a fun game for us to play. It's a fun rivalry for both teams. We have a lot of respect for us. In years gone by, we could never beat them, and then that kind of turned around, and then there was a stretch where they struggled against us, and then last year we probably played as poorly as we had in a long time as far as turnovers and some other different things, and they played great. And hats off to those guys and Coach Bosching, and we had to go through St. John's for a lot of stuff, and this time they had to go through Bethel, and they did it. And so that's kind of gone, and you kind of look at all those things. Well, this happened 2 years ago. I was kind of interested to see some statistics are like, they're crazy because they don't really have much to do with today. And so where we are right now is they really run the ball well with Sam Surr, and their fullback's real good, and their quarterback Nick Martin's excellent. They have Josh Bunham, who's just a terrific athlete, and so they've got a fun offense that way, and it's a little bit different than back in the day when they were flipping it all the time. But and then we're going to run. My son, I was talking to my son this week, and he said this might be the shortest game in the history of the MIAC, because both teams will run the ball on each other, and we'll be patient with it. And so I think that some keys this week is just like every week is you execute your base fundamentals, and you avoid turnovers, and you make big plays. And we're just kind of focusing on just continuing to play. They'll have a little bit of pressure on them to where they need to beat us to solidify a playoff spot. And we're not a revenge group. We're not trying to keep them out of the playoffs. We try to win every Saturday, and so that's what it's just the way it is. So I think keys to the game are going to be execution and turnovers, and you'd say that every week.
One of the interesting things I see about their defense is they have kind of a bend but don't break mentality. They'll let you move 20 to 20s, but once inside the red zone, they really seem to have something extra that helps them to shut teams down. Does that change your approach in coaching, that you need to score touchdowns every time, or are you accepting field goals because you don't want to leave points on the table, kind of thing?
Right. That's really a hard question. It's like when you get, especially at our level, it's kind of a foregone conclusion in the pro level, because they can kick a field goal and then kick the kickoff out of the end zone and all that kind of thing. But we have to take into factors, if we're going to get 3, now we got to kick off, and if they get a good run back, we're almost in better. I'd almost rather leave them on their 15, and go for it on 4th down. So those are things that you have to have philosophy going in, but you still have to make a decision in the game, and those are different ones. And when they don't work, you're an idiot, and when they work, you're smart, and all that. And so it doesn't really go that way. But back to their defense, was the question is they are, I don't know if it's bend and not break, but they're really fast, and they're along the line of scrimmage, and they make changes and they make adjustments, and so they can confuse you. So you really have to stay patient, and that's what they cause you to do, and they're good. And I think that we're similar to that. We are a similar defense to where we have really fast, even our big guys are fast, and so the teams we really do have some similarities on both sides of the ball with those guys, and they play fast, and they're great tacklers, and so if they make you make a lot of plays, at one point they're going to make a play, or you're going to make a mistake that's going to kill a drive.
You were talking about Sam Surr earlier. Having a Marshall Klitsky, does that help you prepare for him, because you have a kind of similar back and for practice preparation?
Yeah, I think they're not real similar backs, but the fact that we run the ball is bigger. That it doesn't really mean that much for Marshall Klitsky. Like when we just played Gustavus, they have some real good backs too. Now I know they have injuries also, but they're primarily their bread and butter is throwing, and our bread and butter is running. And So they don't see as good a running game in practice as we see. But we don't, our defense doesn't see as good a passing game as Gustavus can get. You see what I mean? So St. John's is like we can put our running game, we don't tackle backs in practice anyway. So it's just the fact that we run the ball and that our defense has to face one of the best running teams around. That's a leg up against the Johnnies. Well, the Johnnies have that same advantage because they run the ball well, and so their defense sees a really great running game too. And so, it just kind of goes back and forth. But it's not necessarily about the back. It's about the philosophy of the offense.
So let us head into our fan questions for this week. Starting with our first one comes from Carrie from St. Paul, who wants to know, that leap over the defender and into the end zone by Gunnar Bloom was really impressive. How did you see it?
Gunnar Bloom is really an exciting player, and when he leaped over that defender, I'm like this crazy kook that I don't like it when guys jump, because a lot of times they're up there could be an injury, but also once you leave your feet, you've kind of lost your momentum and stuff like that. So you're at the mercy, unless you're diving into the end zone. I'm not a big jumping guy, you know what I mean? And so first thing that came while he was still in the air, I was saying, don't jump. And then he lands on his foot, does a pirouette and slides into the end zone. And I thought, unless you do it like that, and so I just, Gunnar's really, he's going to be a guy, I'm serious, that the league is going to think, holy cats, because he is really a player. He is just super smooth, and he does remind me a little bit of Logan Flannery, where he's got power. He's got some power that you don't see, and he's just got great feet, but he just gets the game. Every play that we teach him, he makes it look better than I thought it even was. And so when he made that play, it was really impressive. I agree, Kerry. And I saw it like you did. Cool. Especially if it's our guy.
He really reads the defense well as he's sort of approaching the line and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if he's reading it or just, what I mean? I think he's just got that intent. He just knows how to play, because he's a running back, and we put him at receiver because we had injuries out there, and we're stacked at running back, and we just felt like he's a player that's got to be on the field, and he's a freshman and all these things. So we put him out receiver, and it took about 15 minutes to see that he can play pretty good out there too. So
for sure. Our next question comes from Don from Minneapolis, who asked, the Mets looked like they gave away 2 games to the Royals. Did them losing the way that they did alleviate your sorrow about the Cubs?
No. It is a little irritating when the second baseman, like Babe Ruth, and then he's not so much Babe Ruth when he plays against Kansas City. But I wasn't really for either team, but I really wasn't against either team either. I'm kind of getting over the Mets 1969 thing, and just the Cubs need to make plays. But it is kind of interesting how when you have a little time off, the Cubs, they beat the Cardinals and had that time. And I just don't know, when you're hot in baseball, I don't know if that time off is so great, you know what I mean? And I'm not sure how they spent it, but same with the Mets. They had a little bit of a break, and then they came back a little less sharp, in my opinion. But I didn't follow it as much as I would have if, it's hard to. I love baseball, but it's hard to be really deep into it unless the Cubs are in it, because of what I do for a living. Because there's a lot of hours in the day that go to Bethel football. So I learn a lot about the NFL after our season's over, because I can't keep track of all that.
I'm sure. Lots of stuff going on there. Peter from Arden Hills asked, the Cubs are odds-on favorite to win the National League next year. Do you see it that way?
Odds-on favorite, whatever. I think the Cubs are really going to be. I think they're really going to be good. They need to, maybe be a little bit deeper at their pitching and stuff. And it's kind of funny as you watch baseball is, you got that long haul. You got to get into the playoffs, and you need 5 pretty good starters to do that. And then, I certainly think they've got some chemistry, and they've got some athletic people. I think they could strike out less. I do like it that they walk a lot, but I think you really got to have 3 great starters in the playoffs. So, do you need 5 or you need 3? Or, I mean, it's a little bit confusing. So you got to get to the playoffs and then see what happens, because, if everybody had a bad season except the World Series winner, then the Cubs didn't have a real good year this year, when in fact they really had a great year. So odds on favorite, it really, whoever's hot on last week of October, is going to be the world champion. But I do think the Cubs are great, and they're on their way, and they're fun to like, and they're fun to watch, and I like that. So
absolutely. Tim from St. Paul asks, were you one of those guys who held a grudge against that Bartman guy?
No, I could go on for about a day and a half. I went through withdrawal in that thing, and the Bartman guy did what everybody else in the whole world would do, and I was very outraged at. Well, first of all, Moises Alou was the guy that was jumping into the stands, and he's got a vertical that's about as good as mine. He's like 100 years old when he's playing, and he's all mad about it, and I don't think he would have had it anyway. So let Bartman off the hook. The other thing is, the guy who really blew that thing was the shortstop, Alex Gonzalez, who he had a Sunday hop about chest high, and he blew it, and that error was way more costly than Bartman, taking a foul ball that Alou wouldn't have gotten anyway. So I'm not a hold grudge on anybody, to be honest with you, with the possible exception of maybe Ed Kranepool. Look that one up. He's the first baseman for the 69 Mets, along with Don Clendenin.
That's great. Kyle from Minneapolis asks, who are players in the NFL that you really like to watch?
Oh, boy. I like to watch Forte, but partly that thing, I'm a Bear fan. Adrian Peterson, when he's not looking, sometimes he stands around looking for a hole instead of just going, I don't know, anybody but Cutler. That's all I can think of right now. But anyway, the Cub questions, let's get on to the Blackhawks. Here we go.
Okay, Blackhawk questions now. All right, you heard that out there. Okay. Our next question comes from Tyler Fronoka, who says he sees some coaches choose a 3-4 defense and others who choose a 4-3. Which one do you go with, and why is that a better option?
That's a good question, Tyler. And I don't know what the better option is, but I don't want to mix this thing up or anything. But you kind of, if you don't pick one, is where you lose. You really need to have a philosophy and build on it and understand it. Our example, I'll just go to offense. We run the play counter, and it's the real counter tray where you're pulling the guard and the tackle, and we've been running that since 1994 probably. And every time we don't run it to certain things now, and you learn so many things over the year. Well, if we didn't run it for those many years, we wouldn't know as much as we know about it. And so sometimes we always think that we need a tricky play or something else like that, but you have to get great at what you do. And so to answer the question, the 3-4 and the 4-3, we like the 3-4, but we're a little hybrid, because a lot of times traditionally in a 3-4 they got the nose guard. 3-4 is 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and really we can probably recruit a 3-4 type of line guys, where our guys are really good athletes. We got Steve Plucker and Godfrey Mpedi. He's just about the great. He's an unbelievable player, just a tough kid and they're quick. And our nose guard is Nate Holgren, and he is a tough kid. So those 3 guys inside are really athletic. Now a lot of people in the 3-4 have a big moose at nose guard, and he kind of takes up both A-gaps, and everybody else can kind of fly around. And maybe if we had that, we'd go that way, but we can get the guys that we can get, and on a 4-3, I feel like you need to get a 3 technique and a nose guard, and then you need 3 or 4 of them, and those are a little bit harder recruit that way. But we do have a lot of real good athletes, so that linebacker thing is where we you can, you know what I mean. So you can interchange them, and you can make your 3-4 into a 4-3, and your 4-3 into a 3-4, just by adjustments. So there are some similarities, but it basically comes down to getting your fit ups right and having guys disciplined and being obedient to what they need to do for the other guy, and then playing fast and the only way to play as fast as you can is if you know what you're doing.
Interesting. Our next question, actually the last two, comes from a person who identifies himself as fellow Bears fan. His first one says, Coach, I know that you are not a big Jay Cutler fan. Does it bother you that he is getting all of these Chicago Bears records?
Not at all, because any record that a quarterback for the Bears has is probably, not that big of a deal, because the Bears have never had a quarterback in the history of my life. I guess Sid Luckman must have been good back in the day, but Billy Wade was a quarterback when I was a little boy, and my dad liked him because he was a Christian, but I think he was just pretty good at handing off, handing the ball off. And then we had Mike Avellini, and we have some nicknames for him, and the records of Bear quarterbacks are pathetic, so I don't care if Cutler has them.
Our last one from him says, Coach, there are many things that are wrong in the world that one could be upset about, but Mike Ditka wearing a Packer sweater in that commercial, come on, man, that's got to be a sign of the apocalypse, don't you think?
That one hurt me now. That one hurt me. I saw that the other day, and it was offensive, and I thought that, it was probably, I don't know what happened there, but maybe, Russia. I don't know. But I thought, Coach Ditka, knowing Coach Ditka, he probably has a plan to make it work for the greater good of the world, because he's with the Bears.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Have fun.
We want to thank Coach Johnson for joining us on Quick Slants this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Bethel University head football coach, please send them to us at stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Steve Johnson at minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Tuesday afternoon so we can give the coach a little time to review those before we record our show Wednesday morning. I want to thank you for joining us again this week. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll look for you next week on Quick Slants.